All right, thank you, Dan. And thank you for Zebra inviting me to speak at the conference. As Dan mentioned, my name is Jack Weixel. I'm actually probably in a room where people know how to pronounce my last name. It's interesting how many different pronunciations, and I usually say, yes to Yahoo. It doesn't really matter at this point. But as I mentioned, I'm head of business development for our OEMs, our global OEMs for the Android enterprise platform. And I've been engaged with Zebra for the last couple of years, specifically because, Zebra is the leader in this industry, which is a really critical one to Android and Google. And part of my presentation today is going to be talking about exactly why that is. And what I'd like to talk about is where we're going, where does Google think we're going, and why are we doing certain actions and capabilities and development strategies. And I'd like to match that up with what we're seeing in this enterprise segment, where we see that going, and hopefully that jives an awful lot with you, your partners, and what you believe as well. And you know what? I'd like to ask a question, by the way, just so I can get a feel from a European perspective, and it kind of relates to some of these numbers that we're going to see up on the board here. But can I see a raise of hands of anybody that actually has, at one point in time, had a BlackBerry device that they were utilizing? Because it's kind of interesting how that might differ between North America, particularly Canada, and other areas. Okay. How many use that as their primary product today? Primary handset. Anybody? One guy? BlackBerry thanks you, by the way. As we take a look at these numbers, the point that I'd like to make, I think we're probably familiar with a lot of them, but if you look at it, they're staggering at the end of the day. Number of connected devices is going to range over the next few years to over 100 billion from just 8 now. And when we think of the whole mobile smartphone and mobile device history, we're not all that far removed from there was no such thing as a smartphone, at least the way we think of it. And we're looking at 100 billion devices in a very short period of time. But more importantly, 90% of IT decision makers think that enterprise mobility is critical to their function and critical to what they're going to be able to achieve over time. And if you think about it, one of the reasons that I asked about BlackBerry was smartphones at one point in time, right? They started a lot of this revolution. When we think of being able to do email and secure communications on a mobile device, a lot of people still think of BlackBerry. And yet one day, almost overnight, that entire landscape changed. And one of the points I'd like to make that I'd submit that I'll argue is that we're at an inflection point right now in terms of taking a look at what's been done over the last period of time, what advancements are coming to market, what are the trends that people are seeing. And I guess my message is don't have a BlackBerry moment where all of a sudden you wake up one day and the industry has changed, you're suddenly left behind, and everyone's going off in a different direction. I think that we're in a situation where all of us, particularly the developers, because that's where all the magic occurs. We'll get to a bit about talking about why that is. We're all in a scenario where probably in the midst of the biggest technological change in our lifetime. And it's pretty amazing when we think of where things have been, where we're going, and how we can achieve some of these capabilities. Because at this stage, connected devices are going to be everywhere, right? We're already seeing this, whether it's from a knowledge worker perspective or what we see when we walk into a retail shop, how you see things happen in a warehouse every day. The world is changing. Some examples of purpose-built devices beyond what we typically would think of. Well, it ranges from being able to scan a package, for example, or do other functions with a smartphone type of device. But also, for example, in the lower right-hand corner is a company called Ziosk, where it's an Android device that sits on a restaurant table. If you've been to a Chili's in the U.S., you might have actually seen this in action. And it was actually first implemented because the restaurants thought it would be cool to be able to have a little bit of entertainment, because when the family's there, the kids can play some games, do some things while they're ordering. They have a menu that you can peruse. There's videos that play about this. They had a huge uptake of this particular dessert here, by the way, that's featured in this video as people are sitting there having their meal. The interesting thing, aside from just the whole idea, was to be able to, as I said, have an entertainment or something that's cool and different. They saw revenues increase by 20% as soon as they implemented these devices. Because all of a sudden, people would see those videos of the desserts and then add that to the order. They'd watch someone walk by with a particular appetizer, And they had the ability to add that without waiting for their server to come back, just add that onto their order, and it would come to the table. They paid at the table. So as a matter of fact, tables turned much quicker than they used to. So they could do more volume over a daily basis. All of this was actually an afterthought, and there are all kinds of analytics that they're pulling out of this and other capabilities that they're deriving just from having this device they can pop on a table that customers could use. That's the type of capability that we're moving into, and it's all enabled and really can be leveraged with a connected enterprise, because it's not just that device sitting on the table. It's what is it connected to? How can it deliver other capabilities? What insights can a company take out of what they've learned from what that's captured? But some other examples, by the way, are travel agents. This is actually a McDonald's display where you can walk into a McDonald's and instead of talking to the restaurateur, be able to key into that particular kiosk what your order might be. Obviously, a lot of you might be familiar with Tesco and how they've employed Zebra devices that range from being able to all the data capture, scanning, delivery capabilities, have maps that go out to whatever location it is that's going to go ahead and deliver a particular product, to having people walk in and just walk through the aisle, pick up a device without having to go to a checkout, put it in the basket, be able to scan the device to be able to pay for that. Bottom line is purpose-built devices are proliferating across the marketplace, and what we're in the business of is figuring out how we can improve the operating system, give you the basic tools that you can develop some of these cool applications and capabilities on top of that. And when we look at the marketplace, one thing I love about working with Zebra is Zebra learned early on, or recognized early on, that there was this thing called the Android operating system that could be leveraged to do some cool things in a business sense, even though we were focused on consumer. Now, you hear Google talk a lot about the idea of concepts like consumerization of IT. The fact that when we look at a consumer world, that's where a lot of functionalities, creating capabilities, spur development in other parts of the segment, and all of that's true. And I'll give some examples later of what we're doing in O to continue that trend. But what Zebra did was recognize how that could be applied to an enterprise format and actually make specific purpose-built devices for enterprise use cases, and did a brilliant job in being able to do that, even though Google hadn't really focused on it. We were focused more on a consumer aspect. We've learned from what partners like Zebra have done that we should be building some of these capabilities into the platform to make it easier for some of our partners, ranging from Zebra developing devices to application developers to take advantage of things. And we've built capabilities within the OS, ranging from, for example, device encryption out of the box, being able to have biometric authentication standardized so that all applications can be able to write to that. Verified boot, so that you can ensure that a device has not been tampered with, that everything is secure the way that you expect it to be, to the point where a GMS Android device at this point is probably the most secure device you can possibly be using. So we've taken some of those lessons. Working with partners like Zebra helps us do that at a more rapid pace and actually understand how we can deliver products to the enterprise market quicker. So I'd like to talk in that idea of being able to have adoption in the consumer space that spurs adoption into the enterprise space. I want to talk a little bit about what we introduced in O. And some of the things I'll reference, by the way, a lot of this is going to be geared towards consumer, but I'd like to tie that into some of the enterprise use cases. And by the way, I don't know if many people had a chance to watch the live stream of the keynotes where some of this was talked about. It's online if you'd like to go back and see more in-depth and detailed discussions of this. But some cool things that are happening in O are overall around Assistant, how we've made some changes with Google Assistant, being able to adopt a more fluid Android experience in any Android O device, and also new experiences, being able to bring new VR and AR capabilities to devices to do cool things. One example is the Google Assistant getting more conversational. So sometimes, whether it's because of noise or privacy or whatever it happens to be, you don't always want to be talking into your phone. We're actually adopting the capability to use text input for this. And we're also adding some other capabilities that we'll show some examples of what we call Google Lens that's tying in the visual discovery into Assistant as well. And we'll give some examples in a second. We're expanding the capability, rolling out, as a matter of fact, it even runs on iOS at this point. We want to make Google Assistant relevant everywhere. But we're adding new languages this year and early next year. And there's a couple of capabilities that are more applied towards consumer on the right-hand side. But if we take a look at a deeper dive into what I've mentioned, Google Lens, for example, is camera meeting assistant. Now, this is a consumer view of things. And here's an example of I'd like to talk to you about the things we're working on. Some of them haven't yet been delivered to market. But here's an example of how we start on the consumer side, but then could be applied towards enterprise. If you take a look at the left-hand side, you're essentially taking a camera that's taking a picture of a particular, if this was an Adele concert, just out in the streets there. And what the product does is identify what that poster is, and then do a search to identify that, okay, here's Adele. Here's a particular show that they've got. You can buy tickets. You can add that to your calendar. All because we've taken a picture and it was able to add that context and what that image actually was. On the right-hand side, you're walking down the street and you're taking a picture of a particular merchant. And it comes up and gives an example, does some links to particular reviews and so forth. Again, just using the visual identification. Now, thinking ahead a little bit, there are some partners that we work with in the market today that will have visual capabilities that, if tied to a merchant's inventory, would be able to allow a customer to be able to take a picture of a bicycle that happens to be on the street, or some other sporting goods, a purse, shoes, and so forth. Imagine tying that into an inventory, so that because you see something that's compelling, you'd be able to take a photo of it, identify your favorite retailer might have that available, a location nearby that you could be able to go shop, or something gets shipped to your home, all simply from visual representation that you see on the street and your mobile phone, tied to the inventory, tied to a number of other systems that you have, ranging from where is it to how can I get it to that customer's home. That's the idea of being able to pull this into a connected enterprise scenario. Other things that we're doing just in the operating system itself is, at the end of the day, optimizing certain capabilities within the system so that we can do things ranging from booting up quicker. Your devices will boot twice, much quicker, half the time to boot your devices that you previously used to do. I guess I'm still jet lagged, by the way. I apologize. Going all the way to Prague, I'm stumbling over my words. But the bottom line result is, if you're an app developer, your customer moves to O, your applications run faster and you didn't even do anything at the end of the day. That's the kind of improvement that we want to create at the operating system itself. We're also introducing limits of what we will permit in the background so that your battery life lasts much longer. And I know in this particular industry that's a key concern. We're also introducing a number of things with enhanced VR and AR technologies. So you get your chance to be able to potentially have a daydream device. So hopefully you'll have a chance to do something like this firsthand. But ranging from a number of companies developing AR products to the idea that we've developed a Daydream standalone headset so that you don't actually have to put the device into the headset itself, to visual positioning service. If you think about indoor, how this would all tie into an enterprise standpoint, some of the things that I've seen from Zebra, for example, is the ability to do a heads-up display and how you overlay information about particular product scenarios and so forth. If we can create the ability to make this easier for partners to be able to create products and then app developers to write applications and run on those in the enterprise sense, obviously that's a big deal. Visual positioning service. There's a video that I just saw the other day was an example of this with a self-learning drone. And there were two scenarios that were given. One was within a warehouse where the drone was mapping out where various items were and learning where various items were stored, so that later on they could use that drone to be able to go and pull items. And an example that they used to show how smart this was, or how you can teach the drone, was a self-learning drone in a maze in the UK, where they walked through a particular maze and the drone learned all the different aspects of how to get out, and then it could be launched and actually on its own be able to go and accomplish all of this. So if we think of some of the challenges that we have in a warehouse, or being able to pull product or identify indoor mapping scenarios. These are the types of technologies that we're building first in a consumer standpoint that we see easily rolling over into the enterprise scenario. So some other interesting things, more fluid experience. We talked about picture, that I referenced is picture-in-picture. Now in this case, it's a pretty simple consumer example. But imagine this is a scenario where you have a tech out in the field and you're doing a video conference. And maybe at the same time that you're viewing a particular manual or being able to work on a particular product, we're able to have a picture-in-picture experience. Smart text selection. So that what we're actually doing here, how many times, I know I've done this a ton, is if I have an email and I want to pull a particular address and plug it into Maps, right now I can cut and paste a word at a time, right? Well, what we're now recognizing is the ability to select an entire address, because it recognizes an address, a phone number, a URL. So it makes it much easier to be able to cut and paste this type of scenario. The last one is probably something that more applies to a consumer aspect, but I'll explain it anyway. It's being able to see notifications by app. So for example, so that you can see that you have 3 or 4 emails, you're able to pull down the notification bar and so forth. So it's handy and it's kind of cool as well. But those are some of the things that we're introducing, some of the advances we're making. There's actually a ton more of that. And like I said, you can go and take a look at I/O. Android was a big deal at I/O in particular this year. But what's behind all of this that we think is so important is in a digital world, almost all businesses become data-centric. When I talk about the big inflection point, it's really a cloud mobile revolution at the end of the day. So these mobile devices, it's great, it's wonderful. We have smartphones. What really matters is what are the applications that are running on those smartphones. And what matters more than that is how does that relate to an enterprise as a whole. So rather than being a siloed approach, how can we take a 360-degree view of a particular enterprise and gain some insights and drive a lot of capabilities from that perspective. So when we look at the connected enterprise, we have 3 things we want to take a look at: connected, smart, and secure. We want to help companies get a 360-degree view of an enterprise, so that you can have a good view of what's happening by capturing relevant and contextual data from a variety of endpoints. And we want to make that smarter by using that contextual intelligence and various capabilities that we would have potentially in the cloud, or that some of the partners that you are building on would provide in the cloud. So you have a much smarter and in many ways automated decision-making process. And of course, it has to be absolutely secure. You have to trust the data capture and store is going to be protected in a secure fashion. So when we take a look at the connected enterprise, the virtual cycle as we see it, essentially you're implementing smarter workflows by being able to capture information across multiple endpoints. These are sensors, these are smartphones, these are other devices, and be able to instrument, draw better insights out of the data that you see, do an analysis, and then go back and improve that workflow. It's a continuous cycle and continuous improvement. And how does that connected enterprise work? The one emphasis I want to make is instead of looking at things as a silo, instead of looking at things as just a warehouse app, instead of looking at things as just what's happening in the front of the house in a retail environment, how does all this work in stream? Instead of taking a look at the customers as opposed to employees and the particular workspace, how does that all in context, in stream look? So you have to instrument it with all these devices I talked about, be able to analyze that and then improve all from a customer workflow experience instead of isolated devices, isolated applications, isolated silos. Now the connected verticals that we look at, that we've identified, are probably pretty similar to the ones that you've looked at, ranging from healthcare, manufacturing, connected retail, and some examples of this from a retail standpoint. I'll go through a couple of scenarios in just a second here. How do we make point of sale easier? How do we extend capabilities into a retail aisle? How do we serve customers better and still gain insights out of that as we do it? Connected healthcare, I have a particular personal view of that. My wife's a breast cancer survivor. And she went through treatment about 10, 12 years ago, doing quite well. But through that process, I learned a number of different things, probably in a way nobody really wants to learn it, and some lessons that probably nobody really wants to learn in the first place. But at that point in time, we had a hard time even understanding what treatment options are available. What's happening? What do I seek out? We didn't even know who to talk to that had gone through an experience similar to Karen's. Post-treatment, Karen had gone back to school to become a patient navigator and now works at one of the local hospitals in the Bay Area, assisting women who've been newly diagnosed. And she talks to me about some of the advances that she's seen. Of course, I've paid particular attention to some of the partners that we've worked with, and some examples of ranging from really simple to some more complex. Just the ability to, is one partner does that I know, hand a tablet to a patient as they're just beginning treatment to not only talk about what are the various options and a video explanation of what they seek out, who they talk to, that's much more consumable from a printed form. That's a massive deal. In this particular partner, by the way, that's just one of the particular ailments that they will treat. And depending about who the patient is, the device will come back after a period of time and then redeployed for another particular ailment. All managed from the cloud, all delivered from a central location. And it sounds simple, but when you're the patient on the other end and you haven't had any exposure to this, it's a big deal. To the same point, if you go to the more complex side of things, some of the doctors that would tie into not only treatments and managing patients specifically, but in the cases where they may need to seek out trials of when a patient is having difficulty, maybe they've reached the end of treatment options, clinical trials that may be available. They're all networked in terms of what's available, who can they talk to, how do they connect. All this happens daily. And when I take a look at that, I guess the easy way to say it is by taking a look at a connected enterprise, taking a look at some of these mobile devices, it ranges from saving you time to actually saving someone's life in many cases. That's the kind of thing that we're looking at in terms of mobile devices and the connected enterprise. That's the kind of impact that we can make. So I'd like to take a look for a second and imagine if, thinking about this and thinking about what we look at every day, what are some of the possibilities, right? What does this actually mean? So let's use some examples. We're all familiar with this trend towards tablet-based point-of-sale systems, right? And I talked a little bit about Ziosk and specifically what they're doing. That's just tip of the iceberg, right? The information that they gather, what you display on that particular point-of-sale system, being able to take that payment, that's great, that's fantastic, but that's the tip of the iceberg. So let's take a look at what that could be. If we imagine a scenario where, number one, when I do shopping, my wife's going to have a great time on vacation here for the next week and a half. She thinks shopping is, an adventure. To me, it's kind of a chore, right? I do all my shopping online, but there are certain things I want to do in a store, right? Because I want to see a particular television or I want to touch some particular items. But I have an objective. I've done all my research. I want to go in and compare. Then I want to do a transaction. I want to walk out the door, right? So imagine a scenario where I can do that kind of capability. I can walk into a store. I want to understand what are the comparisons between these particular televisions that I might have picked out. And when I walk into the store and I talk to an associate, they're an expert. Doesn't matter what I've picked out, right? Doesn't matter which set it is. They know it is because all they have to do is scan a particular code on that device. They can pull up information they can pull up specs, they can pull up reviews. You can see the device and actually watch the screen and so forth. All of that can be accomplished, but they can actually then generate an order because I've picked out now the particular device that I want. Now, the order could be paid right there in the aisle. Maybe you can pay up front, but you don't have to generate an order. You just handle everything on the tablet and the screen. And at the same time, what's happening is you're transmitting this information to a warehouse somewhere where they're going and pulling that device to be able to deliver it to the user. Whether it's on site or you're pulling it from another store location, maybe that particular store doesn't have it in stock. You find out where it would be, because I may decide that following the purchase, I want to pick it up at a roll call window. Maybe it's a 55-inch TV screen. It doesn't fit in my car. Maybe I want to have it shipped to my house. Either way, It could be shipped, and across the way, of course, you're tracking, managing deliveries and so forth of this particular device. All of that tied together, and all of that probably could be accomplished today with a lot of devices, with not necessarily having a completely integrated scenario. But really, the solution doesn't stop there, the value of the solution. If we think about it, the next time I walk in the store, maybe I'm looking for a soundbar to go with that. Maybe I'm looking for something else to go with the product. If there's information that can be transmitted to the associate that they can pull up my profile, maybe I belong to their loyalty program, and they can see what I've purchased, they can make an offer for a particular product to me. I have a great experience. They sell product quickly. In fact, maybe I don't even want to talk. Going back to the idea of doing everything by social media, I'm probably one of those guys that probably doesn't want to talk to an associate. I would prefer to walk up to a kiosk, tap my device on that kiosk, and be able to generate an offer for myself, or to find out not only what product might be available, but actually be able to find out exactly where to go and find it. Maybe I don't even go and find it. I just buy it because I know that that's what it is in the first place. But the bottom line is all of it is accomplished because I've chosen to be able to turn over some of my information to a store that I'm already a loyalty member of, so that I can gain a better experience. And if we tie it all together with a cloud mobile scenario, that's a much better experience. But maybe the solution doesn't even start there. Maybe it doesn't even start in the store. Take a scenario where someone is looking for a new carpet, new floors, new paint, a new sofa. They want to redesign, their home. They want to buy new products for their living room, whatever that happens to be. Imagine a scenario where a conversation starts out with a design consultant who walks out with a tablet, and maybe the first stage is going through exactly that same comparison shopping, identifying in a product catalog, what types of wall coverings you want, what are the colors, you used to go in and get swatches of carpet or paint that you come home and take a look at in your particular living room. But they'll discuss a remodel project in your living room. The consultant can help you go ahead and browse all those selections, anything that the user might want to take a look at, and then leveraging augmented reality. Instead of those swatches that we talked about, they can show you exactly what that floor covering is going to look like. They can show you exactly what the window treatments would be. They can, instead of just imagining, you can see exactly what that completed project is going to look like. Now, at that point in time, the consultant can go ahead and check the inventory, price the project, generate a quote, take a payment, schedule a delivery, all of that because they're connected back to the various parts of the organization. The order can be delivered to the warehouse, items full, loaded for delivery, inventory updated. Maybe they're tracking the inventory to understand what the buying trends are, whether it happens to be seasonal, whether they happen to be running through one particular item that happens to be a hot buy. The system can be updated to alert for replenishment. Maybe something's a little bit slow, special pricing is ordered. All of this is being handled in an automated fashion, in a connected fashion, so that the homeowner can get what they want at the end of the day. And that's not just make-believe. I'd like to show you an example of how this actually works in terms of identifying a product and using augmented reality to satisfy a homeowner. Now, that's a partner of ours that uses our Tango capability within their products to go ahead and do that. I saw that demo first at the NRF show in January. It's pretty amazing when you actually seen it. I don't know if any of you have actually had the chance to see this capability live, but it's pretty stunning that you would actually see exactly how it's going to look, the proper dimensions in a particular space. I'd urge you to check it out if you get a chance. But that's an example of taking consumer. That was originally developed as a consumer application. Now there's clear enterprise use cases for that. What's key to a lot of this that I see when I talk to various retailers is the fact that loyalty can enhance the customer experience in a lot of different ways. And we're used as consumers to being able to opt in to loyalty programs to get various things, such as it could be special offers to us, it could be discounts, whatever that happens to be. I work with a couple of different partners that work with retail customers at the end of the day to deliver capabilities ranging from those types of discounts to personalized experience. And it's all developed to be able to gather information, to be able to produce better products, better offerings, and also just better experience at the end of the day. And some examples that I'll give you. One is a software company that I work with based out in Massachusetts, that they will have a loyalty app that a retailer would be able to embed, or loyalty capability retailer would be able to embed in their product, so that a customer that would walk into a particular store might be able to say, okay, literally be able to speak to the phone or chat with the phone and say, what's on my list that I have to buy again. I don't know how many times I've walked in to a particular store, whether it's a grocery store or otherwise, with a particular list in mind. I'm not really good at writing things down, by the way. And I'll walk out remembering or forgetting 1 out of 10 items that I wanted to go in the first place. They have a capability to be able to alert you not only to a particular list that you've already developed, but based on your buying habits, identify what you might want to buy again, similar to what you've seen with some of the online retailers, only this is taking it into the store to be able to do that. 2, suggesting things based on what your shopping patterns have been that you might be interested, that might be on sale, might just be something new and suggested. These are the types of capabilities that you can take advantage of, because this particular app is understanding what your shopping habits have been, what items you're interested in, what you should buy again, and so forth. Information that I'm happy to deliver to this particular retailer as long as I'm getting something back out of it. One of the other examples, there's a company in the Northwest in Seattle that works with various restaurants to be able to deliver a customer relations product that tracks information about who's visiting the restaurant, what their dinner habits or lunch habits happen to be, tracking who they are, what their parties are. An example, if Joe walks into this particular restaurant, and the restaurant knows that Joe comes in 6 times a year, right? And every time Joe walks in, whether it's dinner or lunch, it's always a business event. Probably 8 to 10 people involved. They tend to buy a nice bottle of wine at dinner. The bill happens to average about $2,000 every time they walk in. But Joe never picks up the tab. Now, the next time Joe walks in the door, the restaurant gives Joe the best table in the house. Because if Joe's in the house, it's going to be a nice dinner, right? And in fact, when they walk up, Joe's picture appears on the console. He's greeted by name. He's a VIP. It's been a very effective program and done really well. And it's all about capturing information that the restaurant wants anyway, creating a better experience for the customer. They're more apt to continue, to frequent that restaurant and be able to deliver things. So it's actually worked out really well, and we've seen more and more of that. So the store of the future, the way we see it, is a good example of the connected enterprise that enables the empowering of various employees, augmented shopping that we talked about. There could be immersive experience using VR along the way. I didn't have an example to go ahead and give you there. But we want to be able to streamline services and modernize some of those tools to actually be able to superpower the supply chain at the end of the day. Now, when we take a look at what we can do by delivering cool experiences to customers, we can start gathering insights ranging from purchase habits, what projects are purchased together. One example of a company that I've worked with, for some reason, identified that when customers walk in, for some reason, pizza and beer, if someone's buying diapers, if someone's buying diapers, they had a high propensity to buy beer at the same time. I'm not sure exactly why or how that connects. but they actually ended up moving these displays closer together and had an uptick in pricing. So the idea is that they were able to gain insights on shopping habits. In this case, they actually didn't have loyalty apps. They didn't have specifics as to who the individuals were. They were looking in terms of what the shopping habits were, and it was still very effective. When we take a look at store layouts, retailers spend an awful lot of time and money trying to figure out what's been effective, what's actually driving sales. To be able to pull that information in an easy way to not only be able to analyze that, but allow maybe the application itself to utilize machine learning and be able to deliver insights because it's analyzed the information to help you do things from arranging the stores, the inventories, the displays, the ends caps. That can be extremely valuable. Same thing being true outside the store. When you're talking about deliveries and you take a look at fleet management, if one truck is having more repairs and more problems than others, well, why is that? Is that related to the route? Is it related to the driver? Is it related to other factors? These are the types of insights that machine learning and other cloud capabilities can deliver. And of course, information about routes and how that can be adjusted to account for various items. So where are we going with all of this? What we know is device and app usage continues to rise. I had a panic attack earlier today because I realized I left my device, out as I came to get mic'd up, earlier today. And it was literally a panic attack. And it struck me that that's how attached we are to these devices. If you think about it, if I lost that device, it'd be easy because it's an Android device. I could pick up another one and all my contacts and everything else would be back. But the idea that we'd be out without it for a short period of time was almost giving me a heart attack. That's why I couldn't speak earlier today. I was still in shock and unable to function. But obviously, it continues to increase in enterprise mobile computing spending, and increased desire for innovation in the product itself. So we see more and more deep handset functionalities, evolving experiences. All this is a virtuous cycle. And what does that mean? Where are we going? Mobile itself continues to evolve. We talked a little bit about BlackBerry, and early on, smartphones were all about email, right? When we think about, you send a secure email message, ooh, cool, right? As compared to what we do today, that's like Stone Age at this point in time. We're moving to highly personalized experience, contextually aware applications, more enhanced capabilities every day. Mobile digital experience are changing. New mobile device types. AR and VR, Android Auto, for example, interaction types. You're no longer just typing in your phone, you're speaking to your phone. New intermediaries is how you actually interact or with either data or other users. Collaboration apps, when we talk about email, yeah, you can do email, but look at all these other applications and capabilities that we think of on a daily basis in terms of how we would use it. And that's, again, just the tip of the iceberg. We think beyond that, some of the enterprise capabilities and how this could be used with digital assistants so that we can do anything such as, for example, type in a question about why is a Transformer 1 having a problem? And then you can interact with the system to learn. It learns more. It gives you prompts for more questions. You can type more information and come up with a response as to how you want to treat that, what you want to do. If you're a salesperson, where are my hot leads? Be able to tie in information from a database of various sales to actually laying that out on the map to either give you insight as to where this is happening or help you plan your routes. Image recognition enables new systems. I'll give an example of a new solution it works with in a second here regarding identifying particular pests. But automatic reality enhances productivity to be able to identify not only another example of envisioning how something looks in a space, to actually overlaying and understanding how you would make repairs to a particular bit of machinery, for example. So instead of having a static manual, place the manual straight on top of whatever you're working on. So let's give a real quick example of that. Rent-to-Kill is, I don't know if they have a European chain as well. In the US, it's a pest control organization. So in this scenario, Tina had gotten some information about, they got a request. There's a pest problem at Pete's. I think I'm pretty safe here. There's probably no Pete's employees. I don't think there's Pete's here in Prague, is there? I had asked when I was in, didn't want to offend Pete's, that they have a big pest problem. But the idea is, Pete's has given them a call and said, hey, we got a pest problem. Can you come on out? Well, the rep, the contractor goes out and utilizes the camera to take a picture of this particular pest, and the system identifies that it's a cigarette cockroach. Take a look. Is that a cigarette? That's a cigarette cockroach, right? So how do I treat that? What are the answers? The system gives them the ability of this is how you go ahead and treat for that particular pest, get rid of the problem. And by the way, you explain to Pete what types of capabilities or what types of actions should you take to avoid Rent-A-Kill from having to come out in the future. That's an example of being able to tie a lot of this capability together. You know, one of the great things I get to do at Google every day is watch this magic be created. The magic is not Google. The magic is what you guys create using Google capabilities. At the end of the day, this comes in many different forms. Whether some of the consumer applications we talked about, this was a business application. There's magic that's created. There's magic to be able to all of a sudden deliver to customers products much cheaper than you ever could before, in a much more compelling fashion than you ever could before, to allow people to complete their functions, their job capabilities on time, under budget, to be happy with what they do day in and day out. In leveraging those capabilities, creating that magic, we're all collectively shaping the future. This is a trend. This is a machine that is rolling. This is something customers are looking for all the day, every day. But what it takes, when we take a look at it, what we would like to see achieve are partners like yourselves that actually can harness the power ability, understand and conceive these use cases and these capabilities that we collectively can deliver to users at the end of the day to empower their employees, engage with their customers, and actually deliver intelligent capabilities to the marketplace. So when I think about that, and when I have an opportunity to stand in front of a room like this, I want to say thank you, number one, for even being here today. Thank you for working with Google, for working with partners like Zebra to be able to deliver these capabilities. Thank you for making people's lives easier, their lives better, their lives happier. That's what we do at the end of the day. I don't know about you, but we have a choice of many different capabilities we want to do every day, many different jobs we could go after. It's being able to see that satisfaction or knowing that you can deliver something that makes impact. That's what gets me going every day. And I think we have an opportunity in a particular place and time to really make that to create an impact unlike anything we've ever seen before. So I look forward to being able to work with you, in future years, going ahead, achieving new ideas, new capabilities, understanding and learning from you what we can do to support your efforts and making all of this real. So thank you, Zebra, and thank you for listening, and I'm looking forward to working with you as we move forward.